What's good, my boy? This gonna be a short one, but I wanted to hop on here and talk about this thing that you don't really see it as much anymore. I guess for like more uh, ignorant people, they'll put this forward. But a lot of like the old new atheist movement and stuff, a lot of what they said was predicated upon this point. And I've seen recently this Alex O'Connor guy hop on there and say this a lot. Like his videos will pop up with a thumbnail, and it always has this topic in it, which is the whole argument of God being evil, mainly based off of the Old Testament. Whenever you read certain things where God would command his people to go and wipe out an entire civilization all the way down to the child, so their practices didn't leach into their society or anything like that. Or whenever you get a little bit further, closer towards like the exile and stuff like that, or they keep making these mistakes over and over and over, sinning. You got like 20 kings that were like all bad, basically. And God's basically asserting, this is basically the way the Christian apologist would explain it, that God's asserting that his protection's over his people, and when he takes his hand off of them, all these bad things are going to come upon them, right? But that's not what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to focus, and I'm going to try to make this short and pretty, just point out some obvious things. I'm not going to make like super concrete arguments. I'm just going to point something out that's super obvious to me, and I feel like to a lot of Christians this is just a given, but atheists do this weird thing where they come up with a definition of God in their head that's not actually correct to any sort of deeper theology from people like the Catholics or the Eastern Orthodox or any of that. And they come up with this definition or idea in their head, and they just defend their position as if this false idea is what we all believe. So, their argument is that because God commanded all these crazy things in the Old Testament to happen, he's evil. He's absolutely evil. This has got to be an evil God that would do these things. And I ain't even trying to blaspheme right now. But it's absurd. It's like absolutely absurd. We're not talking about Billy down the street playing Minecraft on your server and he kills all the villagers and kills the pigs and the chickens and the cows and burns your house down or blows it up with TNT. That's not who we're talking about here. We're talking about God. Like literally, if you go, and we're not going to try to convolute the idea of God either. We need to have a pure Christian idea of God, not some mishmash idea with evolution packed into it. No, the idea of a creator God who literally spoke into existence our world, okay? The most complex idea ever from an atheist's mouth or in their brain. That brain, that little brain that could fit in a 5-gallon bucket that thinks they got everything figured out, came from God. The ability to have those ideas came from God. The physics of nature surrounding us came from God. The ability to have these deep metaphysical concepts came from God. Literally everything. Our most concise plans that we could ever come up with, the most convoluted plans we could ever come up with, all the superheroes and all their powers that have ever come into imagination, and all of their complexities and all of that came from God. I mean, the ability to come up with that came from God. Not because there's obviously no observable superheroes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like how we've come up with these concepts of superheroes being able to have these wild powers, and we can kind of fantasize about that and make TV shows. The ability to think of how we're going to make a TV show, the ability to make TV shows because he created us as human beings. Like, the more you branch this out without like a concrete worldview, it kind of gets a little esoteric, but you do have to think and give this much reverence to God. I mean, we are not talking about Napoleon Bonaparte making his battle decisions, some jihad in the Middle East, making some terrorist bomb plan. We're not thinking about Vladimir Putin in Ukraine right now. We're talking about God, omnipotence, future, past, present, everything. Snap into existence whatever he wants. If he wanted to whistle a tune and kill all of us right now and restart with a new civilization, it would be nothing to him. But see, this is the beauty of the Christian God. The beauty of the Christian God is once you add all the layers of typology into this to understand the true goodness and mercy of God, he chooses not to do stuff like that. He chooses to hold his court with us, with a chosen people, and basically try to mold and form us while still remaining and giving us free will, the main determining factor of love, of being able to choose and have freedom, to be able to come up with these stupid theories of God must be evil because he killed people. Blah, blah, blah. He created your brain, bruh. Like everything you perceive, all physics, all of mathematics, all of this stuff, the most creative, absurd, outlandish movie idea, book idea. You see these artist people. I used to be in this camp. That's what I talked about in my last video, where I would get caught up in certain art forms, and I would just absorb all this content from these artists talking about how miraculous and mysterious these crazy ideas, these masterpiece ideas come into your brain, how we have the ability to learn all this stuff and get good in the system in human nature to be able to learn skills and actually be good at things and not be handed everything on a silver platter, and the beautiful balance of that. All of that complexity came from God. Like, we're not talking about some dude playing some sandbox video game here. We're talking about God. You play a sandbox video game as you or me as a human being, there'll be times where we're stumped, where we're like, well, what else should I do? Well, what else should I do? That's not God. If you take him in the true Christian theological sense, like where you read certain people like Aquinas and all these Christian philosophers where they paint this beautiful painting of God. I mean, Aquinas has this huge tome of the Summa Theologiae, and it's just vast with all the stuff that they go through and dive in and talk about. And to sit there and ask this question of God's bad because he kills people boils God down to a dude in his basement playing a video game. Why'd you make that decision, dog? It's like, bro, you're only going to be on the planet for 70 years if you're lucky. How can you sit there and ask an infinite being why they, or even question it? You just painted, and this is, again, like, I'll reiterate the point. The problem that most atheists paint in their heads is, most of the time I see them go so smart or say something so smart because a lot of them, they study philosophy and all this stuff, so they can kind of, compared to a lay person that's just like a churchgoer or something that doesn't really dive into this type of stuff, they can paint all these like metaphysical concepts and talk about epistemology and complicate all this stuff without really saying anything at all. Just kind of, what is to think about what is this cup, blah, 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 all this different stuff, whenever they get the most simple concepts wrong. God. How does God exist if babies die of cancer? Blah, 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 blah. Bro. But then they'll go and revere this crazy system through science that we can understand. Through the past thousands of years, we've been coming to an understanding of certain scientific concepts like physics and gravity and all these different things. And they revere that, the complexities within that, the complexities within mathematics, the complexities within all these systems that they revere. The fact that we have the laws of logic in themselves. Certain ethical hypotheses, all these different things they revere it, but they can't understand the simple fact that they're getting caught up on such a simple idea And yet they think that from the human mind, all these concepts and stuff are understood only because of a human mind. It's like, no, bro, there is God. There is divine inputs coming in. The way that the Christians, the scholastics kind of explain this is how, well, I don't really want to get into the deep metaphysics of all of this, but it's just a beautiful painting that they put together. And these atheists just boil it down to, well, through evolution and all this time and stuff like that, we kind of just start to understand it, but they can't wrap their head around a God being infinite. It's like, babies have to die of cancer if this giant painting of a creator and all these laws and all these rules and all these things are to come together and mesh. And certain things are not to be understood yet. I mean, I feel like this is why I've been attracted a lot to the Catholic faith, is because other faiths, and I really revere them, like Orthodox. I like Eastern Orthodoxy a lot, but they kind of have this idea of just, they have a deep, rich theology, but they separate themselves from a continuation of certain things, where they're just kind of like, okay, certain things are going to be mystical and we can't try to understand them at all. So we're just going to separate ourselves, keep this theology we've built, keep this tradition we've built, and not expand. And half of that's right, like within the tradition of the church, the liturgy itself, a lot of the customs I feel should be kind of concrete and not move or budge. But within the Catholic faith, you have just so many great periods where they didn't take that approach and tried to source out and know all these different things. And to a degree, it's kind of corrupted it. Like you see where we are in the Catholic Church now. Some of it's corrupted. There's lots of confusion. You've got all this divide between traditional, non-traditional, radical, traditional, all this different stuff. Even people like the Sedevacantists. But to me personally, to wrap this up, I really just find this idea absurd. Like, how does God kill a bunch of people? That's so bad. It's like, bruh, a terrorist in the Middle East will conceive of some plan of his, like, of his revelation that he needs to kill all these people and kill himself to do something. He can come up with that idea in his head, albeit it's wrong. He can come up with that idea. What type of ideas do you think God can come up with whenever it comes to moving the chessboard? Which I don't even like using that analogy, because it kind of gives them grounding whenever they argue for, like, God's not a personal God, he's not a good God. But I'm stating, whenever you add all of the typology, all the rich theology on top of basically, to put it in better words, whenever you add all the richness that has been said over the past 1,000 years about God within Catholicism, it really just, it's a much richer perspective than just a lot of these atheists that get hung up in, like, just crazy arguments and just end up coming off as irrational. Like, I really just don't see how it makes any sense. And then what's worse about it, and this is the biggest thing, like, I don't really care if someone's going to be an atheist or not, but they get these people like there's so many agnostics nowadays. I was one of them for like years, where I would hear these arguments and be kind of pulled in by them in my ignorance, because I just randomly chose to just, okay, I'll adopt their idea of God, instead of spending hours just kind of reading and trying to understand the true perspective beyond, like, just something like certain Protestant beliefs. Like, whenever I was first exposed to Christianity, it was a very simple view. There wasn't much depth in it, and it kind of pushed me away, because I was like, okay, it's just like, we come here, we sing, we have, like, I went to this one church where it was literally like a rock band. There wasn't much reverence at all. There wasn't much teaching, like in the Catholic faith as well as the Orthodox faith. You learn, like you have a whole catechesis that you have to go through as a catechumen and learn about all of this deep, rich theology, and you actually get to participate in that. It's not just like you go to the church where he's going to tell you, believe in God, pray to God, and you're going to have a Lamborghini in a house, because that's what a lot of this Protestantism has devolved into. Yeah, you can get into like all the reformed stuff, and it's pretty deep. I think a lot of it's been disproven whenever you really watch the debates and stuff like that. But the average Joe in Christianity needs to realize this, that one, there's a deeper essence of their faith, and two, you just can't get hung up on these silly arguments by a lot of these atheists and agnostics. I mean, they're just easily disproven and just based in just ignorance. So anyway, my boy, that was all. Peace out.